Check. 37. विशुद्धौ ते शुद्ध स्फटिक विशदं व्योमजनकं शिवं सेवे देवीम् अपि शिवसमानव्यवसिताम् ययोः कान्त्या यान्त्याः शशिकिरणसारूप्य सरणेः विधूतान्तर्ध्वान्ता विलसति चकोरीव जगति. 37. In 36, we discussed Agnya Chakra. Tava Agnya Chakrastham Tapana Shashi Koti Dyutidharam. This is what 36th shloka. So we were discussing how Shiva Shakti is residing in the Agnya as Manas. And then the energy is now coming down to Vishuddhi. In the next few shlokas or the verses, you will see Adi Shankara is bringing us from Agnya to Vishuddhi to Anahata to Manipuraka, Swadhisthana, Mooladhara. And with that, the Ananda Lahari comes to an end. Okay. So the last 6 verses are focusing on each of the chakras. Okay. And this is almost like how he is blessing us with the descendants of Devi, Shakti, the descendants of divinity into us. See, in the Sri Chakra, you will notice there are the innermost, as you go look at the triangles, there'll be a triangle that is facing upwards and there'll be a triangle that will face downwards. So there are 4 4 upward facing triangles which are called Shiva triangles, and 5 downward facing triangles are called Shakti triangles. Downward and upward actually means is downward indicates the descendants of grace or divinity, and upward triangles indicate the ascendance of energy within us, the effort that we put for the ascension of the energy. And only when both happen simultaneously will we be able to experience the joy of consciousness rising within us or becoming subtler and subtler. This is only possible when both are happening, right? In fact, in one of the very popular verses of Bhagavad Gita is Sarvadharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyah Moksha Ishyami Ma Shuchaha. I will give you grace. I will give you moksha. I will give you liberation. I will give you understanding. So that I moksha ishyami, he is using that in the Uttama Purusha. I will give you, which means the way it has to be translated is grace has to descend upon us. How much ever effort you put, grace has to descend. So in the last several shlokas or mantras, Ananda Lahari is all mantras. The way one should look at Saundarya Lahari is at least the first 41 verses are mantras, because these have been directly received from Shiva and Shakti, Parameshwara, Parameshwari, Kameshwara, Kameshwari. The remaining 59 he composed because it was taken away by Nandi as a goat. We know the story. So the first 41 have very high potency in mantra value. So the mantra that so many mantras that he that came through till 35 are mantras of ascension. Essentially, how you meditate, you do 36 onwards till 41, it is descension of grace, grace coming into us. But again, when grace is descending upon us, we should be conscious of it. We should be receiving of it. That is also an important aspect. Only when we are ready to receive will grace descend. Like Ramanar Gatapai, somebody asked, Bhagavane, unga arul venam. Oh Bhagavan Ramana, I need your grace. Then Bhagavan Ramana says, Arul Matundane irukku. That means there is grace alone. There is grace. Grace is only grace is there. நீ நடுவுல வந்தா வராம இருந்தா போறோம். You don't come in between, he says. He says grace is always there. You don't come in between. Which means we become a recipient of grace. Whenever we keep observing our life. Whenever there is something little beautiful thing happens, we immediately thank and experience that grace. எவ்வளோ பியூட்டிஃபுல்லாக நடந்தது எனக்கு. It happened so beautifully for me. It could have happened in a million different ways in which I could have suffered. But it happened in this particular way. I have received grace. As we practice this, we become more and more recipient to grace. So the first 36th one, or the prior one, he spoke about the Agnya where Shiva Shakti comes together. Here he is bringing it to Vishuddhi. Te Vishuddhau te Shuddha Spatika Vishadam Vyoma Janakam. Now in the previous one was Manas. Manas was the element in the Agnya. Here it is Vyoma. Vyoma is Akasha. Akasha. So from Manas is Akasha. In fact, if you refer to Taittiriya Upanishad, in Taittiriya Upanishad, in the second one, which is Anandavalli.
Parame Vyoman, like that.
In Anandavalli, there is a whole, the dissension of how creation happened is explained. It is described. So it goes as
Akasha Sambhuta.
correct. Etasmad Atmana Akasha Sambhutah. From Atma comes Akasha. Akashad Vayuhu. Vayor Agnihi. Agner Apah. Adbhyaf Prithvi. Prithivya Oshadaya. Oshadibhyo Annam. Annat Purushaha. So this is the way how creation comes down. From Atmanat, from Atman comes Akasha, which means from Manas. The previous one, Agnya Chakra was the Manas. From that comes Akasha, Vyoma. From Vyoma comes Vayu, Anahata Chakra. From Vayu, Vayu Ragnihi, Agnerapah, Abhyaf Prithvi. So this is the way creation happens, how divinity comes into manifestation from avyakta to vyakta. So in this process, he is saying, Vishuddhau te Shuddha, that one of the reasons why Vishuddhi Chakra is called as Vishuddhi is to indicate that it has the potency to filter out any kind of impurities that enters your system. Impurities entering your system can be cleansed at the Vishuddhi Chakra. So the one whose Vishuddhi Chakra is activated will never get impacted by the world. Anybody throws anything at this person, he will not get impacted. It will come into him in the Vishuddhi, it will cleanse, purify and go into system. And this is symbolically represented by Nilakantha. Shiva, how he holds the poison in the Kantha. Nilakanteshwara. How he holds the poison in the Vishuddhi Chakra. Halahala poison that comes out of the Sagar Manthana. That he holds it here. He is able to hold it in the throat because this is the function of the Vishuddhi Chakra. It is so powerful when activated. It can ensure that whatever negativities are there in our surroundings, it doesn't enter our system. Neela Saraswati, Matangi, she is also known to be in the Vishuddhi Chakra. So if we meditate upon Matangi or Neela Saraswati in the Vishuddhi Chakra, she can activate and ensure that negativities don't go down. Half our problems are not half, 90% of our problems are how to deal with the things that are coming from the outside now. Inside, if you're left by yourself, you're generally okay. Something comes from the outside, and then there is a trigger that comes from the inside as a response. So the thing that comes from the outside, if it gets filtered and goes inside only positive, then your response will also always be positive. So if we are able to activate the Vishuddhi, then we can ensure that none of the external agencies or the stimuli does not enter our system. The idu madri, when you make tea, you use the filter to filter out all the the tea leaves, and that's important because otherwise you can't have a good tea. வாயில மாட்டின்டே இருக்கும். It'll always keep. You'll not be able to. It'll not be a good tea for you. So you'll have to filter out the dross so that pure elements flow through, pure energy flows through. Vishuddhi Chakra. Now here is Vyoma Janakam. He is the creator of space. Janakam, the Janaka of space. Who? Shiva. Shiva here is represented as the Vyoma Janaka, creator of space, and he is of pure crystal. Although Vishuddhi Chakra is represented as sometimes dark blue or indigo kind of color, here it is represented, this is after the purification has occurred. So if you take poison, which is dark blue in color, you purify the poison, what remains is colorless liquid, right? So in that sense, he remains as this pure crystal. And even things like judgment, see, look at this, what are all our situations are either physical, emotional, or it's at the, so essentially it's at the physical level or the emotional level, most of our problems that we are dealing with, and all of that is under the Vishuddhi. So if I don't let, in fact, even if my Vishuddhi is activated, the food that I eat can also be made sure that it doesn't turn into poison when it goes into my system, right? So I pray at the Vishuddhi and make sure that I pray that, whatever food goes down my system, it becomes nectar, amrita. It gives me the life energy that I require. So physical, emotional, all of that can get controlled and purified here in the Vishuddhi. Shivam seve devim api Shiva samanavya vasitam. Here now at the Vishuddhi, now I'm meditating upon Shiva and Shakti together residing here. They're residing here together. Yayoh kantya yantya shashikirana sarupya saranehe. When they are sitting there, when I meditate upon Devi and Shakti together here, they are emanating moonlight like rays, Shashikirana, and they are Sarupya. They are exhibiting beautiful moonlight rays, Shashikirana, which is very cooling. What is the beauty of moonlight ray? Whenever there is a moonlight, these rays of moonlight fall, the experience of calm, ease, a certain level of resting, all of this is experienced, right? So here, what happens is anything that comes here as a gush, Siddha Vishuddhi, it calms them down, it calms it. Any agitation comes, anything that comes, like Buddha once said, somebody was shouting at Buddha and abusing him. His disciples are all standing and saying that, Gurudev, why are you why are you letting this man abuse you so much? He says, no, he's just saying words. Only when I take them, then it is an abuse. I am not taking it. When somebody gives you a gift and you don't take it, then what happens? The person has to carry it back with him. So like that, I'm not taking it. So like that, when all of this comes from the outside of the Vishuddhi, if it's activated appropriately, then what goes down is Shashikirana. like the moonlight rays. And Sarupya. Who's Sarupya here? Shiva and Shakti are in the Sarupya state, which means they together are in the same, they're identical. We've seen this. There are four kinds of moksha or liberation one can attain to according to the Shastras. Salokya, Samipya, Sarupya, Sayujya. Four kinds of liberation. Salokya in the same loka. Samipya being associated, being close to your Ishta. Salokya is in the same loka as your Ishta or the Deva or the Lord that you're wanting to merge into. If you are in the same loka, that is Salokya moksha. Then Samipya, you're close to the Ishta. Sarupya, you're in the form of the Ishta. Sayujya, you become one with the Ishta. See, these are the four kinds. Here, there is a reference to Sarupya. Identical. Shiva and Shakti are identical. Vimarsha and Prakasha. The potential to illuminate and the illumination. It is identical. There is no difference between Vag Artha. Kalidasa's famous line. Vag Artha
வாகரத்த பிரதிபத்தையே
Pratipaddaye. ஃபுல்லா சொல்லுங்க மாமா. வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தையே.
வா-
वागर्ताविव सम्पृक्तौ वागर्तपति
వాగర్తావివ సంపృక్తౌ
जगतपितरौ
వాగర్త ప్రతిపత్తి
Hmm.
జగత పితరౌ వందే
वन्दे
పార్వతీ
पार्वती
పరమేశ్వరౌ.
Parvati Parameshwaro. So how Vag and Artha together go together in the same way Parvati and Parameshwara go together. Sarupya. They're identical. And then what you experience is this Shashi Kirana. And the next line says Vidhutantar Dhvanta. Vidhuta Antardhvanta, the darkness that is there within, which is ignorance, that goes away. Vilasati, that goes away, and there is shining. Chakoriva Jagati, in the way how a chakora bird. So there is this bird called chakori or a chakori bird, chakora bird, which is essentially, it's a mythical bird, like a Paramahamsa. Like they say, a Paramahamsa is a mythical bird. In that way, this is a mythical bird. This bird it feeds on the moonlight beam. Shashi Kirana. The moonlight lane, the beam varolla, it opens its mouth. How do you open? It'll open its mouth, this bird, and wait for the beam to fall into its mouth, the moonlight beam, and it feeds upon it. And it waits for it's a poetic representation, and it feeds upon the nectar that comes from the moonbeam. It's a poetic reference to show that in the same way how a chakora bird feeds upon the nectar that comes from the moonbeam, if we meditate upon Shiva and Shakti here, who's like a pure crystal who cleanses away all impurities, what flows inside our system is pure nectar, Amrita. And like the chakora bird, we can feed upon that nectar when it flows within our system. Right? And what it does, when we are able to consume that nectar, when we meditate upon Shiva Shakti here at the Vishuddhi, and when we are able to consume that nectar or joy. Nectar, now what is nectar here? Joy. Everlasting joy is Amrtatvam. When we are able to consume that joy, what happens? The darkness of ignorance goes away and there is Vilasati, shining. There is bright shine. ययोः कान्त्या यान्त्याः शशिकिरणसारूप्य सरणे विधूतान्तर्ध्वान्ता विलसति चकोरीव जगति. Okay? So vishuddhau te shuddha spatika vishadam vyomjanakam shivam seve devim api shiva samanavyavasitam yayoh kantya yantyah shashikirana sarupya saranehe vidhutantardhvanta vilasati chakoriva jagati. So now we have brought Shiva Shakti from the Agnya to the Vishuddhi, which is Akasha Tattva. Okay. Next one we will see uh, the Anahata, which is the Vayu Tattva in the next one. Samunmilat samvid kamalamakarandaikarasikam bhajeham sadvandvam kimapi mahatam manasacharam yadalapadashtaदशगुणितविद्यापरिणतिः यदा दत्ते दोषात् गुणमखिलमध्यः पय इव. Now, Shiva Shakti, they're descending further down into Anahata. Okay. Where is that written? It talks about Manasascharam. Samunmilit samvit kamala makarandaika rasikam bhajeham sadvandvam kimapi mahatam manasacharam yadalapadashtaदश गुणितविद्यापरिणतिः यदा दत्ते दोषात् गुणमखिलमध्यः पय इव. So this particular it's not mentioned as Anahata in this. In the 36, he is mentioned as Agya Chakrastham. In the previous one, Vishuddhau te Shuddha. So there is a clear mention of the chakra. In this one, that is not mentioned, but it is indicated. It is implicitly indicated by means of two swans. Two swans. Hamsa Soham. Hamsah Soham. These are two swans. Swans, na, in Sanskritam, swan means Hamsa. And the mantra that is heard in the Anahata Chakra is Hamsa Soham, or the Soham mantra. Saha Aham. Aham Saha. I am that. That is I. I am he. He is I. So that is Ha and Sa. Ha, Hakara indicates Shiva Tattva. Sakara indicates Shakti Tattva. So Ha and Sa together means Ham Saha, which means Shiva Shakti together. But where? In the Anahata. And this is known as Hamsa or Soham mantra is known as the Ajapa Japa. Ajapa Japa. There are different kinds of japa. There is a Likhita japa, there is a Vachya japa. So you can say Manasika japa. There are different kinds of japas, right? No. So this is called as a japa japa, which means you don't chant it, but this chant happens. A japa japa. Hamsa hamsaya vidmahe paramahamsaya dhimahi tanno hamsa prachodayat. This is the Gayatri for the Hamsa, Paramahamsa Gayatri. Hamsa Soham Paramahamsa Paramatma Chinmayoham Sachidananda Swarupaham Soham Hamsa Om. Hamsa Soham Paramahamsa Paramatma Chinmayoham Sachidananda Swarupaham Soham Hamsa Om. This is also known as Paramahamsa mantra. And these are usually given as initiation to sannyasis who take up to full Sampurna Sannyasa, they're asked to chant these because for them at that time, when you are a sannyasi, a Purna sannyasi, you are not even associated with a devata or a deity or a form. There is no association of form also. It's not Om Namo Narayana, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Klim Krishnaya. No, none of that. It is only association with the Nirguna Brahman. And that in our physical form, that appears as breath. Hamsa is usually practiced as you take a breath in as Ham, let the breath out, Saha. Ham, Saha. Ham, Saha. It's a very, very, very powerful technique to practice as a breathing technique. And what is associated closest to the breath is the heart, Anahata. And the Anahata, the heart beats. If there is breathing, the heart is beating. Right? So these are the two things that keeps the Vayu. So the Vayu Tattva is essentially associated with Anahata. And this Tattva is associated with the Hamsa Mantra. And why is this Anahata Chakra called as Anahata Chakra? If you look at the word, Ahata means to make a sound. Ahata. Ahat. Ahata means sound. Anahata means, in fact, ahata means sound that is made out of friction. So how does sound get created? It is when two things come together. Struck, it's called as struck sound. When two things are getting struck, then there is sound. That's how it is in nature. But this is called as unstruck sound, anahata. Unstruck sound. Why is this unstruck sound? Because this is associated with breath. Sorry. This is associated with breath. And there is no external agency, that there are no two things that have to come and strike together to create this sound of Hamsa Soham. This japa that happens within us, this ajapa japa that happens within us is not happening because of two things coming together and striking. This is pure sound. Okay. So this is happening where in the lotus of the heart, it is the fully blossomed lotus of the heart. Sam unmilat sambit kamala makaranda eka rasikam. There is makaranda, and there is complete the nectar of the joy of this fully blossomed lotus. Whenever this lotus is fully blossomed, there is a joy that is experienced in the mind. Bhaje hamsa dvandvam kimapi mahata manasa charam. In the minds of great yogis, these two swans are swimming in this lake of mind. In fact, the mythical bird Paramahamsa, the Paramahamsa bird or the Hamsa bird, is known to be swimming in the lake of Manasarovar. Lake Manasarovar, which is when you go towards Mount Kailash, there's a lake Manasarovar. And that Manasarovar is a fabulous lake. I mean, people have had very, very profound experiences on that space. It's a very pristine, undisturbed, untainted, unadulterated lake. So even now, there are many, many higher spirits or energies, higher energies that come and visit and make use of the energy in that place for their own spiritual growth. See, today we are in the physical body, we are embodied, and we are seeking moksha, we are seeking liberation, we are seeking higher states of consciousness, we are seeking dissolution. Even I'm assuming my body drops now, I become disembodied, I will still continue to seek the same. So even in the disembodied state, I will seek that. So there are millions and millions of disembodied beings who are seeking liberation and moksha. And such beings visit such highly charged places. And Manasarovar is one such place where they visit, and then um, they have the experience. I mean, they whatever energy they receive, they use that energy for their spiritual growth and progress. There are many disembodied beings who don't have to be born again in a physical body to attain moksha. We don't know each being at what level of attainment they are, right? Like we say, people like Adi Shankara, at the age of 8, he asked for sannyasa. At the age of 8 or 9, he got his guru, spiritual guru. At the age of 10, 12, he started going around as a parivrajaka. So these are beings who who've been, even if you don't think of them as an avatara, they would have matured so much in their previous births that they're born and they're instantly into it. So in that way, we don't know how the level of each being is, right? So if there is very little that remains, if the body drops for some reason, it is not necessary for the being to take another body for that last mile. So they go into places of this kind, highly charged places, the Himalayas, which is why such Tirtha Kshetras are very, very charged places for people like us to go, because so many disembodied beings also come to the same place. And without their knowledge, they will just be blessing us and going. So in Manasarovar, the mythical bird is said to be there, the Hamsa bird. Bhaje Hamsa Dvandvam. I worship those pair of swans. Where are they? In the Manasarovar is the lake, but if you look at it in a more in a manner to bring it within, it is Manasacharam, Mahatam Manasacharam, in the yogi's mind, lake. Manas is usually also referred to as a lake, right? But here the Manas is not the Manas that is indicated in the Agnya Chakra of the 36th shloka. It's not this Manas. This Manas is of the Agnya, the Anahata, the emotional part of you, where the swans are swimming. And what are they doing? They are having a conversation. The swans are having a conversation. Yat alapat ashtadasha gunita vidya parinatihi. So it is said in this conversation. So who are these swans? We said Ha, Sa, Shiva, Shakti. They are the swans. They are the swans, and from their conversation comes all the vidya. Ashtadasha vidya. Shodasha vidya and Ashtadasha vidya. All of that 18 forms of knowledge comes out of this conversation. And that is what is there in Shiva Puranam also, right? In Shiva Puranam, how is it described? All the teachings that we receive are a conversation between Shiva and Shakti. Shiva is teaching Shakti, and hence the rest of us get it. How did Saundarya Lahari come in the first place? Shiva gives Shakti, and then Shakti gives it to Adi Shankara. How does Vijnana Bhairava Tantra come? How most of the Tantra and the Agamas. So this conversation is happening, and through this conversation, all the knowledge is flowing into the world, which means within us, if we are able to bring or meditate upon this particular aspect of Shiva Shakti sitting in the Anahata, in the lake of the mind, in the Anahata, and you essentially meditate upon the Hamsa mantra or the Soham mantra, all knowledge will come to us. Whose vehicle is Hamsa? Saraswati Devi's. It is her vehicle. So when you're invoking her vehicle, it means you're invoking Devi Saraswati also. Invoking Devi Saraswati, when she comes, all knowledge comes, because she's the embodiment of knowledge, embodiment of understanding, embodiment of all forms of art. Right? So here you have these swans and you focus on them. So essentially you're meditating in the heart chakra or the Anahata chakra with the Soham mantra. Right? We saw here in the Vishuddhi, in the previous one, you're meditating upon Shiva Shakti as pure crystal, as the Akasha Tattva or crystal here. The Chidambaram Rahasyam. Chidambara Rahasyam is what? Akasha Tattva. And that Nataraja is here in the Vishuddhi, you're meditating upon him, and he's cleansing, and with that nectar flowing into your being, now you're coming down to Anahata, where you're visualizing or you're now becoming aware of your breath, of your life energies in the form of Soham Hamsa mantra, and there knowledge starts flowing, understanding starts flowing, and which is what he is saying, Ashtadasha Gunita Vidya Parinatihi Yat Adatte Doshat Gunam Akhilam Adhyaf Paya Iva. Now, what is this understanding? This understanding is discriminative intelligence. To be able to discriminate between Nitya and Anitya, temporary and permanent, truth and untruth. This differentiation, intellect, which is called as Viveka, the Viveka Buddhi, when one gets that, you're able to distinguish from, to take out the rasa from the world. It's like taking out gold from a bangle. Do you know how to take out gold from a bangle? We don't know. We don't know the method. Do you know how to separate copper and gold from a bangle? We don't know. We have to go to a person called an achari. In the same way, a Paramahamsa is a Hamsa, like the mythical bird swan. The swan is known to be able to take out milk alone and leave water. Because water and milk, when they mix up, you cannot separate it. This bird has the ability to separate milk alone and leave water there. In the same way, the Paramahamsa, Jnani, or the Jivan Mukta can look at the world and take only the essence of the world, which is consciousness, Brahman, and leave the rest of the world as, either look at it as mithya or look at it as creation that is going to dissolve, or look at it as whatever, but this is not the ultimate truth. This distinguishing understanding will occur in the Anahata when we meditate upon the Hamsa. Shiva Shakti as Ha and Sa as Hamsa. Hamsa Soham, Soham Hamsa. Hamsa Hamsaya Vidmahe, Paramahamsaya Dhimahi, Tanno Hamsa Prachodayat. May this Paramahamsa enlighten my intellect so that I understand the difference between truth and untruth. when we start seeing the larger truth of life, then we will not get the effect of Vishuddhi will start then working slowly, which means we will not get impacted, we will not get affected. That understanding will settle in. That the way I see the world, the moment I see, like for example, we say you go to a potter, all he will see is clay. You take him any kind of pot. The Saravana stores இருக்குல்ல நம்ம சென்னையில டி நகர்ல there's a Saravana stores. You walk into the Saravana store, you'll see millions of stainless steel dabbas and patrams and all of that hanging there. You go to the manufacturer of Saravana or the Saravana stores guy, for him everything is stainless steel. Mommies will look at it and say, oh, idu dabba nanna irukke, oh, idu paatram, idu tattu, idu pudi vecha paatram, idu kaadu vecha paatram, all of that we will see. But he will see everything is only stainless steel. Now, what is important here? Look at the way he perceives. For him, everything is stainless steel. Now, can we walk into the world and see everything is just material? There is consciousness within it. Everything is consciousness enlivening through all this matter. There is consciousness in the tree, there's consciousness in the animal, there's consciousness in the objects, there's consciousness in the people. Everywhere. All you see, which is what they say that you were able to see God everywhere. This is what it means. See God everywhere means this. What is that particular shloka? We'll close that shloka of Ishavasya Upanishad. It's a beautiful, I think the 7th or the 8th one. 7th. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyevānupashyati sarvabhuteshu chātmanam tato na vijugupsate yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaiva bhut vijanatah tatra ko moha shokah ekatvam anupashyatah. If you see this in that and that in this, you see this everywhere and everywhere in this. The Vishwarupa Darshanam that Arjuna had. What is the difference? There's nothing. So when we perceive everything as this one whole, then there is absolutely no distinguishing. There is no fear. And once there is no fear, then there is liberation. That's it. That is liberation. Right? So this particular view is what is mentioned here. Samunmilat samvit kamala makarandaika rasikam bhaje ham sadvandvam kimapi mahatam manasacharam yadala padashtadasha gunita vidya parinatihi yadadatte doshad gunam akhilam madhyaf paya iva. In the way that Swan Paramahamsa distinguishes water and milk and consumes only milk, we'll be able to, if we are able to bring in the Anahata Chakra, the Hamsa in our concentration, then the truth of this world will descend on us and we'll be able to see everything as consciousness alone. Nothing else exists. Right? So that is this particular, these two verses. Okay, so we'll pause here today. Om Kayena vacha manasendriyirva buddhyatmana va prakrite svabhavat karomi yatyat sakalam parasmai narayanaayeti samarpayami sadashivayeti samarpayami jagadambikayeti samarpayami sadgurunathayeti samarpayami Hari Om Tat Sat Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.